Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be concentrating on the overarching ideas and themes as seen in the awkwardly entitled Non sum qualis Eram Bonae sub Regno Cynarae by Ernest Dowson. Dowson is most famously associated with the Decadent movement. It existed around the end of the 1800s and was called the fin de siècle. It was the movement before modernism, really, and it concentrated on aestheticism, that is, things that are beautiful, excess, and the importance of artificiality. It was also characterised by speakers who were full of self-loathing and who delighted in the perverse and in perversion itself. Importantly, though, on his deathbed, Oscar Wilde commented of Dowson that he was a symbol of tragedy of all that love is, and we find that sentiment residing deeply within the poem we are considering. It's important for you to know that as a young man, Dowson was a prodigy, really. He was intellectually far ahead those around him, and he very much remained a child in an adult world. He actually fell in love with a child as an adult, and he sought to marry her when she turned 16. Now, she rejected him and he was heartbroken. In this poem, we learn of a speaker who is obsessed with his lost love and whose past fascination overwhelms him in his present existence. So, non sum qualis eram bonae sub Regno Cynarae, eh? I hear you. Well, it translates from the Latin as I am not what I was under the rule of Cynarae. Quite the mouthful, I'll give you that. Ultimately, this is a very knowing move from Dowson to pay homage to Horace's odes, specifically volume 1 of the 4th of Horace's odes. In Horace's poem, the speaker is begging Venus not to continue her erotic war and pursuit of him. He is saying he's not good enough for her. She deserves better. She should be with someone who's more youthful, attractive, and smarter than he. Unfortunately, though, by the end of the poem, the speaker is rumbled. We learn he has a new, unattainable, erotic attraction to a man called Lingers. For us, you might say, well, why has Dowson presented this knowing parallel? Perhaps it's this same sentiment of the unattainability. But for Dowson, it's the unattainability of a former lover. He longs for that former lover that is not with him any longer. Last night, yesternight, between her lips and mine there fell thy shadow, Cynarae. Thy breath was shed upon my soul between the kisses and the wine, and I was desolate and sick of an old passion. Yea, I was desolate and bowed my head. I have been faithful to thee, Cynarae, in my fashion. Across this poem, but particularly we're greeted in stanza 1 with the intensity of time and the actions that happen. We've got this last night, yesternight, between her lips and mine. We're really feeling it's very close to the present. It just happened yesterday. It's recent actions we're being told of. But equally, we're shown it through archaic language, which really links to the fin de siècle movement and also that of the Decadent movement, where we will use old-fashioned words and we'll be knowingly showing how learned we are because we're into excess and we're proud of that fact. So yesternight, betwixt. Even the use of the word Cynarae, as we come onto it in a moment, is a classical reference. It's interesting that across this poem, Cynarae is used with an exclamation mark. It looms over his current affection, this lover, Cynarae. And the use of an exclamation mark really signals to us this is an obsession. It also adds a beat to the rhyme scheme, but we'll come to that later. Across this stanza, it's easy to spot the semantic field of passion. Be that with lips, kisses, the soul and the wine, this person is totally beguiled by their past. Equally, the repetition of desolate across the poem, but specifically in stanza 1, emphasises the grave loneliness of our speaker and just how frustrated they are by what they've succumbed to the night before. More than anything, our step back from stanza 1 is very much the disjointed thinking, where our speaker claims to have been faithful by thinking of this woman in the moments of passion whilst with another person. And this notion of in my fashion really adds to the troubled mindset of our speaker. Equally, if that wasn't enough, the fact it's in the first person adds yet more chilling qualities to the way that their mind is rambling on. All night upon mine heart I felt her warm heart beat. Night long within mine arms in love and sleep she lay. Surely the kisses of her bought red mouth was sweet, but I was desolate and sick of an old passion. When I awoke and found the dawn was grey, I had been faithful to thee, Cynarae, in my fashion. Instantly the repetition of the heart here connotes passion, and the intensity of that passion within the heartbeat of the other lover he has chosen to be with. The repetition again of all night emphasises lust of what has just happened the night before. The most chilling thing within this second stanza is the acknowledgement that the person he's shared this passion with is obviously not Cynarae, but is specifically a bought red mouth, which is implied and clearly enough in its implication a prostitute. The implication also of a prostitute in the past tense, her bought red mouth was sweet, well, he's paid for that pleasure to emulate the pleasure he wishes he had had with his old lover. Once more, the repetition of desolate, as echoed from stanza 1, signals how desperate our speaker really is. It feels to us by now there's a refrain kicking in. I have been faithful to thee, Cynarae, in my fashion. It adds to the frustrations and the yearnings of our speaker, and it signals once more just how damaged our speaker really is in their self-loathing. Exactly what those in the Decadent movement would have been expecting. I have forgot much, Cynarae, gone with the wind. Flung roses, roses riotously with the throng. Dancing to thy pale lost lilies out of mind, but I was desolate and sick of an old passion. Yea, all the time, because the dance was long, I had been faithful to thee, Cynarae, in my fashion. Instantly, that passionate and violent image is shown through line 2 of this stanza. Flung roses, roses riotously with the throng. Perhaps it's so violent because of the alliteration, and the adverb riotously just really smacks us in the teeth about how aggressive our speaker's being with the idea of love. The most famous line, though, is very much the opening line of this stanza. I have forgot much, Cynarae, gone with the wind. It's the transience of it all, yet chillingly, they haven't forgotten Cynarae, otherwise they wouldn't be intending to speak to this wondrous woman. We also get this sense that memories plague our speaker. They're seeking Cynarae in their ongoing pursuit, and they can't seem to shift out of wishing they were with her. The image of the lost lilies in this stanza, it's perhaps a signal of how beautiful a pre-Raphaelite image of beauty was the lost lily. He's seeking to put her out of his mind, yet he can't. Dancing to put thy pale lost lilies out of mind. He's trying to flee from her, but he can't. He's trapped. He's lost, yet he's still with this prostitute. It's that conflict for him. Yet once more, yea, all the time, because the dance was long, I have been faithful to thee, Cynarae, in my fashion. Such a chilling afterthought. I cried for madder music and for stronger wine. But when the feast is finished and the lamps expire, then falls thy shadow, Cynarae, the night is thine, and I am desolate and sick of an old passion, yea, hungry for the lips of my desire. I have been faithful to thee, Cynarae, in my fashion. In this stanza, it's instantaneous for us. We feel the tense shift to the present tense in this stanza. And the sense of delirium is really kicking in. By the time we get to the refrain of this stanza, it feels like our speaker could not get any further with their words. It's uncomfortable as we get ever closer with this idea of the rhyme between passion and fashion in this stanza, it makes us feel uncomfortable. We can't really see this old passion as being acceptable anymore if he's seeking this love in his own fashion. Now, I mentioned earlier that the rhyme scheme is helped by a sort of caesura within the use of the word Cynarae. So every time we have Cynarae, we have the exclamation mark. And it's a very natural way of getting us to visually pause at the sight of that name, but also for us to read it with a little bit more care and an extra breath. The poem flows for us very much in the same way as the Romantic languages may in speech. And actually, you'll note that across each line of these stanzas, there are 12 syllables. And it adds to the flow and momentum of this delirious speaker delivering their passionate exclamation to a former lover. We can step back from Dawson's works and think, well, what's it got to teach us about love? It's probably got to teach us a lot about the legacy of love, the damage that is done, the heart that is broken, and the struggle to be free from the memory of the one you loved.